All right, so welcome to this deep dive. And today we're tackling estate planning.
Estate planning?
Yeah, but hold on.
Okay.
It's not as dry as it sounds, trust me.
Yeah. No, it's actually quite fascinating.
Especially if you're, let's say you're a high net worth individual.
Right.
Right. But you're also a foreign national and you've got assets here in the U.S.
Yeah. Things can get really interesting really fast.
Yeah.
Because U.S. tax laws, they don't discriminate based on citizenship when it comes to certain assets.
So like what kind of assets are we talking about here?
Oh, think real estate stocks in U.S. corporations, even those U.S. bank accounts that you might be using for business.
Huh. So even if you're just...
Even tangible things.
Oh,
like if you've got art or jewelry...
in the U.S.
located here in the U.S., yeah, Uncle Sam's going to want a piece of that.
That's wild. Okay, so for our listeners out there, let's make this real. What's this mean, like, on a practical level? Say someone who owns a vacation home in Miami, but they're not a U.S. citizen.
Okay, so let's say you're a successful entrepreneur from Hong Kong,
Right.
and you love Miami.
Who doesn't?
Right. You've got some beautiful vacation rentals there, those properties. They're subject to U.S. estate and gift taxes. And we're not talking small change here, especially for high net worth individuals.
So even though you don't live here full-time, Uncle Sam's still going to take a cut when you pass on those assets?
It's not quite that simple, but yeah, that's the gist. And here's the kicker. Non-resident aliens, or NRAs as they're often called, they don't get the same tax breaks as U.S. citizens.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
Not always, no.
Mm.
For instance, U.S. citizens, they can pass on their assets to their spouses, completely tax-free.
Okay.
That unlimited marital deduction, it only applies to NRAs if their spouse is also a U.S. citizen, or if they use a special trust.
Okay, so things are already getting a little complicated.
Just a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why having a solid estate plan is crucial for NRAs. It ensures their wealth goes to their loved ones efficiently, without getting eaten up by taxes.
Makes sense. So is that what this Transamerica case study is all about? I saw that in the research materials.
It is, and it highlights a strategy that a lot of people don't even think about.
Really? What's that?
Using life insurance as an estate planning tool.
Life insurance. Never thought of it that way.
Right. Most people just associate it with, covering expenses after someone passes away.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be so much more than that, especially for NRAs.
All right, so walk me through this case study. Then who's this Tom Loon guy?
So Tom, he's our hypothetical case study subject.
Okay.
He's a 45-year-old real estate developer from Hong Kong, loves Miami, just like in our example.
Got it.
Owns a bunch of vacation rentals in the U.S. Pretty standard situation for a lot of NRAs.
Okay, so what's the problem here? What's Tom got to worry about?
Well, his real estate, it's worth about $3 million today. But projections show that over the next 40 years, that value could balloon to almost $10 million.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. And on the surface, it sounds great, right? But that kind of appreciation means a hefty estate tax bill when he passes away.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
If we go by current tax rates, his family could be looking at a bill of almost $4 million. That's money that won't go to his loved ones. It goes straight to the government.
Oof, yeah, that's brutal. And how long do they have to come up with that cash?
9 months.
9 months.
Yep, just 9 months after his death.
Talk about pressure. That's a ticking time bomb for his family.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of life insurance comes in.
All right, lay it on me. How does life insurance help in this situation?
So in Tom's case, he could use a special kind of policy called a Transamerica Financial Choice IUL, FCIUL for short.
FCIUL, got it.
And he could use this to create liquidity for his heirs, specifically to cover those potential estate taxes.
So he's basically prepaying those taxes with this policy.
You could think of it that way, yeah. It's about being proactive, protecting his family from a massive financial burden down the line.
Smart. So this FCIUL thing, how's it work?
Well, first off, it offers a permanent death benefit. No matter when Tom passes away, his beneficiaries get a payout. But here's the cool part. It also gives him access to tax-free supplemental income through loans and withdrawals.
Wait, tax-free income? Did I hear that right?
You did, and he can use that income for anything he wants, supplementing his retirement, travel, whatever he needs.
Interesting. But what about the death benefit? Does taking out that income mean his family gets less later on?
It does reduce it some, but even after taking those withdrawals, he'd still have over $4 million in death benefit remaining.
Wow, so he's basically hitting a trifecta here. Potentially covering those estate taxes, getting tax-free income for himself, and still leaving a nice chunk of change for his family.
You got it. It's all about strategic planning.
This is fascinating. And you said earlier that the early years of this policy show a really impressive rate of return, right?
Yeah, the internal rate of return, or IRR, is particularly strong in those first few years. It actually beats out the tax equivalent yield of other types of investments.
Okay, I'll be honest, financial jargon isn't really my forte. Can you break down what makes that IRR so impressive in those early years?
Sure. So the IRR, it basically tells you the annual growth rate of your money within the policy.
Okay,
And it takes into account all the cash flows, like the premiums you're paying and the withdrawals you're making.
got it.
In Tom's case, even though he's paying those premiums, the potential growth within the policy makes it a very attractive option, financially speaking.
Especially with that tax-free income and death benefit, right?
Exactly. Now, keep in mind, this is just one example.
Yeah.
The source material actually has this whole table.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
It shows how the policy performs over time, year by year. Breaks down things like the cumulative premiums, income distribution, cash surrender value, all that good stuff.
Okay, yeah, that table's pretty handy. I'm actually really curious to see how those numbers work out for Tom.
Let's dive into that.
Yeah, let's see how this FCIUL policy could really make a difference for him and his family.
Sounds good. So with this FCIUL, Tom would pay an annual premium of $75,000,
Okay,
and he'd keep paying that until he reaches 65.
all right, and what's the policy start with?
Starts with a face amount of $1 million.
$1 million. Okay, and $75,000 a year, that's a pretty penny. But I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, considering the potential tax savings and peace of mind for his family, it's a reasonable investment. So after Tom turns 65,
Yeah, what happens then?
that's where things get interesting. This is the financial choice part of the FCIUL.
Oh, right. Okay.
Starting at age 66, Tom can tap into that cash value through loans and withdrawals and use money however he wants.
So it's like extra income during retirement.
Exactly. He could even take out, say, $150,000 per year.
Whoa, $150,000.
Yep, for 20 years.
That's a lot of tax-free income.
It is. And remember, this is all tax-free.
And hold on a sec, does taking out all that cash mean his family gets less when he passes away?
It does reduce the death benefit, yes.
Yeah.
But even after all those withdrawals, he'd still have over $4 million left for his beneficiaries.
Wow, so he's covering those estate taxes, getting a nice income stream for himself, and his family still gets a hefty inheritance.
Exactly. It's a win-win-win situation.
Yeah. This is incredible. You mentioned something earlier about the rate of return being really high in the early years.
Yeah, the IRR, it's really impressive, especially at the beginning.
I'm going to be honest, though. All that financial stuff kind of goes over my head. What makes the IRR so special in those early years?
So think of IRR as the annual growth rate your money is making inside the policy.
Okay,
And it takes into account all the cash flows, like premiums and withdrawals.
got it.
What we see with Tom's case is that IRR is particularly high in those first few years.
Interesting.
It actually beats out what you'd get from other investments, even after you factor in taxes.
So even though he's paying those premiums, the growth potential is still amazing.
Exactly. And don't forget the tax advantages of this policy.
Right, right. So this is just one scenario, though, right?
Yep. The source material has this whole table that breaks down the policy's performance over time.
Oh, yeah, that table with all the numbers.
Yeah, it shows cumulative premiums, income distribution, cash surrender value, and death benefit at different points in time.
Yeah, that table is super helpful.
It really gives you the full picture.
You know, this whole thing with Tom and this FCIUL policy got me thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Like, could this apply to U.S. citizens, too? Even if they're not dealing with the whole foreign national thing?
That's a great question. And the answer is absolutely. Estate planning isn't just for the ultra-wealthy or people living abroad.
Right. Everyone should be thinking about this.
It's for everyone, no matter your citizenship or how much money you have.
So this deep dive, it's got value for everyone listening, not just NRAs.
Definitely. It's
Yeah.
all about being proactive, understanding the tools and strategies you can use to protect your assets,
Makes sense.
to make sure your wealth goes where you want it to go.
Exactly. And hey, you know, estate taxes, they're basically a tax on transferring property when you die, right?
That's a good way to put it.
And for U.S. citizens, that federal estate tax exemption, it's set at what, like $12.92 million per person for this year?
That's right, for 2023.
So if your estate is worth more than that, your heirs could be hit with a huge tax bill.
Yeah, and you got to think about potential growth, too.
Right, like with Tom's real estate.
Exactly. What starts at $3 million could easily grow to way more than that exemption limit over time.
Makes you think twice about planning ahead.
It does. And that's where life insurance can really shine. It acts as a safety net to cover those potential taxes, so more of your wealth actually goes to your loved ones.
Smart. So whether you're an NRA or a U.S. citizen, it's all about mitigating that risk.
Exactly. Protecting your family from a giant tax burden later on.
And life insurance, it's not just about estate taxes either, right?
No, not at all. It can provide income replacement for your family if you were to pass away unexpectedly.
Right, especially if you've got young kids or people who depend on your income.
Absolutely. And some policies, like that SCIUL we talked about, offer that flexibility to access cash value while you're still alive.
Oh yeah, for things like emergencies or supplementing your retirement.
Exactly. It's like an extra layer of financial security.
This is making more and more sense the more we talk about it. It's like a safety net with both short-term and long-term benefits.
And don't forget that the death benefit, it goes to your beneficiaries tax-free,
Right. It's all about making the most of your assets.
ensuring that your legacy is passed on the way you intended.
This has been really insightful. I think we've done a great job of showing how valuable life insurance can be in estate planning.
I agree. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the basics of estate taxes to the potential benefits of life insurance.
Whether you're an NRA or a U.S. citizen, there's something here for everyone.
Absolutely. The key is to understand your options and tailor a plan that fits your specific needs.
All right, so we talked a lot about life insurance. Now, what about those other estate planning strategies, especially for NRAs?
Oh yeah, we can't forget about those.
Mm.
Let's shift gears a bit and dive into trusts.
Okay, trusts. Trusts. I've heard the term, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure how they work. Can you break that down for me and our listeners?
Sure. Think of a trust as a legal container.
A container.
Yeah, for your assets, you create this container to hold and manage your stuff, and you appoint someone, called a trustee, to manage it all.
Okay, so the trustee, they're like the designated manager.
Exactly. They manage the assets according to your instructions, which you lay out in a trust agreement.
So it's like having someone you trust to handle things the way you want, even after you're gone.
You got it. And there are different types of trusts, each with its own pros and cons. For NRAs, some types can be particularly helpful for minimizing estate taxes.
Oh, interesting. So by using trust strategically, NRAs can potentially reduce that tax burden.
Exactly. And make sure their assets are distributed according to their wishes.
Makes sense.
For example, there's something called a foreign grantor trust.
Okay.
It's a popular choice for NRAs because it allows them to hold U.S. assets without those assets being included in their taxable estate.
So it's like a way to shield those U.S. investments from estate taxes.
You got it. That's
Yeah.
right. It's a pretty powerful tool. And, there's also gifting strategies to think about. Yeah, you can actually give away a certain amount of money each year without getting hit with gift taxes.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I had no idea. So you can basically transfer some of your wealth while you're still alive to lower your taxable estate later on.
Exactly. It's all about being strategic. And for NRAs, this can be super effective because the annual gift tax exclusion for gifts to non-U.S. citizens is pretty generous.
Wow, okay. This is all making a lot more sense now.
Okay.
So it seems like NRAs, they've got a whole toolkit of options when it comes to estate planning.
They do. It's about finding the right combination of tools, life insurance, trusts, gifting strategies to create a plan that really works for them.
And even if you're not an NRA, this deep dive's been full of useful info, right?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Estate planning is something everyone should be thinking about no matter where you live or how much money you have.
Right. It's all about being proactive.
Protecting your assets, minimizing those taxes, and making sure your wealth goes where you want it to go.
Exactly. So what's the first step? Where do our listeners even begin with all this?
Well, the best place to start is by gathering all your information.
Information? Like what kind?
Make a list of all your assets, everything you own, both in the U.S. and overseas.
So like real estate, bank accounts, all that.
Yep. Investments, retirement funds, even valuable personal stuff. It's important to know exactly what you're working with.
Okay, so it's like taking inventory of your financial life.
Exactly. Once you've got that figured out, then you can start thinking about your goals. What do you want to accomplish with your estate plan?
Like, are you mainly worried about taxes? Or making sure your family's taken care of?
Exactly.
Mm.
Or maybe you want to leave money to charity. It's about figuring out what matters most to you.
And then you come up with a plan to achieve those goals, right?
You got it. And that's where a good financial advisor or estate planning attorney can be a huge help. They know all the ins and outs of those tricky tax laws.
Right, they can guide you through the process.
Exactly. And help you create a plan that's tailored to your specific needs.
Yeah, this stuff can get pretty complicated, especially with international laws and all these different strategies.
It definitely can. And a good advisor, they can also keep you updated if any laws change.
So it's like having someone in your corner who knows what they're doing.
Exactly. And don't forget to talk to your family about your plans, too.
Oh, good point.
Make sure they understand what you want and how things will work when you're gone.
Yeah, open communication can prevent a lot of headaches down the road.
Absolutely. It's all about making things easier for everyone involved.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive, I gotta say. We've learned so much about estate planning, especially for our listeners who are NRAs.
I agree. We've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
Hopefully our listeners feel like they've got a better handle on this stuff now.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, right? Don't be afraid to ask questions, get some professional advice, and make those important decisions.
That's right. Well, until next time, happy planning.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you on the next episode with a whole new set of fascinating topics.